Yep.
Welcome to our last board meeting. Graduated from Jackson High School, class of 2013. He was very active at Nemesis Farms, swam on the Special Olympic swim team, Stark Sharks, and played Challenger baseball. He also received services from our SSA program. Mark Van Pelt, age 59, passed away Tuesday, November 22nd. He previously attended our workshop program and received services from the SSA. John, age 60, passed away Thursday, November 10th. John participated in Special Olympics, previously attended our workshop program, and received services from the SSA. Start BP employees. Angela King, age 48, passed away Tuesday, November 15th. Angela graduated from Hill High School, class of 1992, then went on to earn an associate's degree from Stark State and a bachelor's from Malone University. She was employed with Stark County Board of DD as an SSA and a member of St. Mary St. Benedict Parish. Let's take a moment of silence to honor those in passing. Okay, thank you. I now need a motion to approve minutes for the regular board meeting on October 25th.
Thank you, Bruce.
And second,
Have line second.
any additions, revisions, or corrections? If not, all in favor of approving the board meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Any abstentions? If none, minutes are approved. Move on to recognition of the retirees.
Good evening. We have two retirees that are here this evening that we'll be recognizing. First, Paula Kulak, if you come forward and recognize Mike Headline. And Mike, you can come forward too. Good evening. Like Mike said, I have the privilege of presenting Mike's retirement to you guys. Celebration of Mike here. Mike has spent 22 years with Stark County Board of DD. I think he recently had his anniversary, right, on the 7th of December, yeah. Mike worked 4.5 years in the SSA department. He did a couple different jobs in the SSA department. He initially came in from adult services, and he was working on our waiting list assessment project, where he was assessing folks for the waiting list. And then he moved on into a caseload where he was the SSA for a group of folks who had level 1 waivers. So like I said, he spent 4.5 years there. But really, Mike's passion was really about adult services. He spent 17 years in the adult services program and various management roles there. He was the new project manager at Localdale Center. He was a project building manager at Higgins. He was a community work experience or CWE operations manager. And then he was team leader at both Localdale Center and Higgins. Although Mike I spent some time talking to Mike today and kind of reflecting because I had the opportunity and privilege to work with Mike in both adult services and in the SSA department. Although Mike is grateful for the time that he spent in the FSA department, like I said, his true passion was really in the adult services division. And this is characterized by Mike's attention in planning that I was able to witness, in planning for like the Christmas parties that the workshops had and the summer picnics that Mike took great joy in planning with the individuals to make sure that those parties were awesome. He also, you could see his attention in making sure that the job was well done in community work experience, community work employment when he was in CWE, or just building his team and with other managers at Wilkesdale Center by simply eating lunch together daily. And I can remember like coming in and saying hi and just seeing the group of managers just sitting there eating lunch together, talking and just building their team, through that simple act. And that was under Mike's direction. So, as Mike and I were talking, he said when he was working in adult services, it felt like managing a cruise ship because it really never felt like work. So after Mike retires, I asked him what his plans are. And he says he's looking forward to having a 2-week vacation or a 2-week adventure with his wife, where they plan to visit their son in Atlanta as they make their way to Tampa to attend a Bruce Springsteen concert. And I think this is going to happen in February. And there, Mike's buddies are going to show him some of the ropes of what retirement board looks like. And then Mike and his wife are going to return to Ohio, and Mike might settle into looking for a part-time job, or he might decide that maybe he's done working. But that idea, I can imagine, is probably pretty hard for Mike because he has worked since he was a kid. So he has an incredible work ethic that is truly admirable. And we certainly have benefited from that. So whatever Mike decides, we want him to know that Stark PD is grateful for his time here. And we wish him the best of everything in his retirement. Thank you.
Too much more I can add after all I can say. I do want to thank the board, even though you folks weren't on the board, but the board when I first started given the opportunity to come here and work because I had no background in any of this stuff. And they said, don't worry about it. We'll teach you what you need to know. And some of the early people I worked with did a great job of making sure I understood how I could help and how we could push our people forward. And I think we've done a lot of that over the years and hopefully we'll continue to do it going forward. So I do want to thank everybody for my time here. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm a big supporter of the program. I'll continue to support it in whatever I do. But I just want to thank everybody. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Retiree is Randy Gallagher. Randy, you want to come forward? And Randy will be introduced by Tim Beard.
Hi there. I'm not going to be poetic as Paul. Nice things to say about this guy. And it's only a few minutes past his bedtime. He has to go get a pearl. Okay, then we're going to talk for a while. First of all, I've known Randy for over 30 years since he's been around. He's been in all kinds of positions in this program. And I've gotten the opportunity to see him do all of that. And the one thing that impressed me the most was the man was there every day for work. No matter what, he was there and he worked hard, and I was always impressive that that's what he was. And when adult services, he was there in the bathrooms. He did this, he drove truck, he did this. And I got to work with him on the dock for county auctions when he was our truck driver, and we had 15 truckloads. And he just got in the truck every day and just drove with a little smile on his face, which was rare. Because that the only thing that really brought him a smile was snow removal. We'll get to that. David, Mark, and him and I, he comes in every morning and we work together. But it was wonderful. But the thing that I shouldn't say was a good thing, when adult services closed, I got the opportunity to hire this man in my department. And it's probably the best hire I've ever made. The man is dedicated. He shows up every morning. He's a sponge. He works with everybody. He's willing to try everything. Even if he comes back to me and says, yeah, I can't do that. But he is at least willing to do that. I mean, he's dedicated beyond belief. Snow removal, the last few years, I couldn't have done it without him. Thanks to his lovely wife who gets up early also. He was up at 2 a.m. with me. I didn't have to call him. He was here with a smile on his face because the man loves snow. Tried to get him to come back to be a snow plow guy. But he was there, he did it, he plowed, he went down to Muskrat, he plowed, and then when he didn't have snow, he actually was sad. So that aspect of believing, because now I got to drive the big truck with the weird plows, and now I'm not looking forward to that. But the man's wonderful, he's dedicated. I'm glad he was a part of my department. Like I said, he was the best hire I've made in 30 plus years that I've worked here. He will truly be missed by my department and his coworkers. And he made my department a much better place to work over the last few years. And I'm very honored to have you on my staff, or didn't have you on my staff.
So it was like Mike, I never really seemed like a job. I had fun. I enjoyed coming to work every day. Thanks.
Okay, on behalf of the board, we want to thank Mike and Randy for their dedicated years of service and wish them many years of health and happiness in return. This time we'll open up for public speaks. So it doesn't look like we have public speaks, so we'll move on to the president's report. Good evening again. Just want to let everyone know, board members Carmelita and Cindy and myself were able to attend the annual convention of the Ohio Association of County Boards with Developmental Disabilities. The highlight was keynote by Dr. Amy Acton. She provided insight on Ohio's COVID-19 response and the pivots that had to be made. She spoke of our collective need for leadership, truthfulness, and meeting people where they are. We also participated in the board track member. I heard a number of topics, including board and superintendent succession planning, devising meaningful board financial reports, as well as the imperative of community engagement. I also attended the advocacy track with topics on state budget objectives, which include addressing the workforce crisis all the counties are dealing with. With that as a backdrop, our December board meeting is filled with many resolutions to close out the year and springboard into 2023, which will be significant given that we have a resolution request for the county commissioners to put us on the ballot on May 2nd, 2023. And we'll also need to discuss and finalize both performance evaluation. A couple of reminders. Please, if you haven't completed your board training, please do so as soon as possible. The trainings are needing to be completed by December 31st. This is an accreditation standard that we want to make sure we're compliant with. Training will be sending out our individual and board evaluations for 2022, which we'll review and discuss during our organizational meeting before the regular board meeting, which is scheduled for Tuesday, January 24th. And all that, Katrina send out a tentative 2023 board meeting schedule as well as for review and discussion. Lastly, if the nominating committee, Maria Higgy, chair, and members Dr. Jessica Valvolet and Cindy Sutter could come to the next month's organizational meeting with recommendation for a slate of officers for 2023, they would appreciate it. And finally, happy holidays. With that concludes the president's report.
Well, greetings. I hope you all are well. As we close out 2022, I figured it would be good to lean in on our mission of supporting choices and creating opportunities for people with developmental disabilities. Our mission is upheld by our values of choice and dignity and respect, stewardship, accountability, and integrity. Well, this has been a really turbulent year, if you will, at least the first half has been, with accreditation and the workforce issues that our agency faced. Believe it or not, this year we hired over 90 new people. Literally a quarter of our workforce have less than a year experience, which is absolutely amazing. But this year, we served 4,182 people, which is more than we ever have in our 53-year history. We served 760 families in early intervention, which is also the most we've ever served for that service. We served 170 students at our preschool and school-age programs. We provided lifelong funding to 100 additional people. Now we have 1,828 people that we fund for the rest of their lives. We supported 149 agencies, 171 independent providers through background checks, training, financial assistance, provider compliance, and RNQA reviews. We secured 2 3-year labor agreements and hired, as I stated before, over 90 new people, 31 being SSAs in our SSA department. And we actually hired 4 more, so that it's up to 35 this year. Which brings us to tonight. I would like to make one recognition. She is unaware of this, but Jessica Holbrook, she completed the County Boards Association's Executive Development Program. It's a 10-month program. She would go down there for 2 days each month, and it resulted in kind of a capstone program. And she was able to share the results in November. So we are very always pleased when we can send a representative there to get that intensive training. So thank you, Jessica. We want to recognize you for that service you provided the board. In your board packet is an update on our annual goals, as well as our risk management plan for 2023. Our risk management plan really focuses on risks in 5 different areas. One is income. The other is goodwill, which is really about the agency's reputation, our ability to accomplish goals, as well as property, risks to our property. So it is a comprehensive plan, and we also meet as a management team to identify the likely risks in those 5 areas that are most likely to happen and represent the highest cost of risk, whether it be to safety, health, finances, and welfare. So, but it is a comprehensive plan that we review and update each year, and we made revisions this year, primarily to the strengthening and bolstering the issue of monitoring the people support, making sure that they're healthy and safe. I do want to personally thank you for your service to the people we support as we close out the year. I mean, as we mentioned, it has been a transitional year to us. It has been one of change. It has been positive movement to improving outcomes for people with developmental disabilities. So I want to thank you for being with us and providing your voluntary service to start the county. Before we close, we do have to do our annual MUI training. I'm going to introduce Tom Vaughn. He is our investigative services manager and cancer survivor. He has had quite a year, but he is here with us and he's healthy and well. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and he is actually going to close out the superintendent's report with this overview and training.
Good evening. So I'm just going to give you kind of a quick overview of the MUI system and what we have going on here in Stark County. So our stuff is actually very much rule driven. It's defined by Ohio Administrative Code and
You got a clicker up there too? You should.
oh, yeah.
Yep.
So anyhow, Rule 6123-1702 is the administrative code, kind of drives everything. Establishes the incident reporting system here in the state. And it, kind of lays out the expectations and how we investigate the kinds of things that we do investigate. So I'm going to go into that with just a little bit more detail. So there's really two types of incidents by rule. There's unusual incidences, UIs. These are things that don't necessarily contain a real high level of risk, which are outside of ordinary procedures, policies, operations. Some of the stuff actually goes to individuals' care service plans when there's deviance from the way the plan was written, but there isn't necessarily a high amount of risk. Those are all program implementation UIs. Those are actually followed up on in the programs where they occur. My unit doesn't really get too involved with them other than some oversight responsibilities. So we get UI logs from each provider, each program in the system that is actively involved in serving individuals. We review them basically 1 month out of 12, review the data that's on those logs. And we follow up if there's any missed MUIs, things that remain unclosed that really are probably need to be closed. We go back, get some feedback. If we're not otherwise involved with UIs too much. Where we kind of come into play in our investigative services unit is major unusual incidences. These are alleged suspected or actual occurrences. We have reason to believe that a person is at risk based on the facts presented. And it's really driven very much by the element of risk. So it's for individuals served in the system. We don't necessarily get involved with anybody that may have a disability to not be hooked up and involved in serving that person through Stark PD. But anyhow, these are alleged suspected and natural occurrences. So for you guys, if you have something you witness, become aware of, suspicious of something you see, we do take those reports. We're not asking you to do a pre-investigation before we get involved. If you see those kind of things, please, just contact us and we'll kind of take a look at it and look from there. So the MUI types and categories, there's 3 appendix, A, B, and C, kind of in declining order, and each one of them has investigative protocols that go along with them. Obviously, the more intense stuff is at the top, category A. A lot of the things in there are criminal or potentially criminal. They are things that are involving a lot of field work to investigate them. We are out there looking at the scene, interviewing people, taking statements, just kind of doing more deep dive into what happened and what was reported, and then trying to figure out, based on the information we gathered, what actually did happen to the best of our ability. The category 8 stuff is actually the only, out of the MUI categories, the only group of stuff that actually has substantiation going along with it. You look at the other things that are either factual or they're not, otherwise, you don't want to go into substantiation with them. But obviously, the more critical stuff, and the potentially criminal stuff, certainly high-risk stuff, we do substantiation, which in our system is actually preponderance of evidence, which is more likelihood than not that it actually getting out. I will say in our categorization of incidences and MUIs, we do have the ability and do periodically need to use multiple categories. So one incident can actually result in several categories. You sometimes see that in the board reports where the number of MUIs filed doesn't necessarily equal the number of categories. We get tallied up. That's why you have some incidences that have multiple categorizations. So the county board reporting system, basically we're available to anybody that needs to put in a report 24/7. The same line, 4774477, basically works 24 hours a day. It's just a question of where I'm coming out. So if you're calling during routine working hours, it's going to come out probably to the intake investigative agent. She's one really kind of reviewing reports, putting stuff into the system, and me and the hotline. If she's tied up, or sometimes if she's like on vacation or something, it'll come directly to me. I'm kind of second behind her. But again, it doesn't matter if it's day or night. If you call after hours, that same number's going to work. The only thing is it's going to take you to eventually somebody who's carrying coverage. So any time of the day or night, you can put a report in. And that becomes very important, especially if it's an emergent situation, ongoing risk. So making a report, basically anybody working in the system, these board members, need to have some kind of good training at least once every calendar year. We do it pretty much through Reliance in the pool of employees. We do an initial orientation where you kind of go into it deeper with new people coming on board. For you folks, if you have anything you become aware of that looks like a reportable MUI, you can call anybody on the management team. You can call me personally. You can call the reporting hotline number. We will make sure that you have the ability to get in a report and work your way through the kind of things that need to be put into what constitutes a report. First things first, though, before reporting really comes immediate actions. So we need to make sure, especially if it's an emergent situation or high-risk situation, that we've had some kind of immediate actions and really will keep everybody safe. Be calling 911, getting kind of medical help that's necessary, maybe first aid, maybe hospital evaluation. Such situations where, especially if there's some kind of physical confrontation going on, separating individuals, notification to law enforcement. I'll go into that just a little bit more coming out here. CPS, anybody that's served in our system that has something going on that needs to be reported, it's up to the age of 21. A lot of people think 18 and that's all. But they necessarily take too many of our reports between 18 and 21, but we do have to make sure that they do occur. And if it's an individual that's an open case with CPS, they sometimes do pay those. Notifying the county board investigative services unit doesn't really necessarily constitute immediate actions, but sometimes that's really all you got, especially if you become aware of something happening at some point in the past, you don't have a lot of details. Sometimes that's really what you got. That's fine. We'll take what we've got to work with, and then we'll kind of run with it from there. So the long-term criminal acts, this is especially important with things that are category A types of cases. We do have to make law enforcement notification in the categories that are particularly important to make that notification are up there. You can go to whoever the jurisdiction is where that event is happening. If it is an emergent situation, ongoing risk, that's certainly really what you need to do. So any of the abuses, neglect, misappropriation, which is really basically theft, exploitation, Peer-to-peer acts is something that does require immediate to 4-hour notification. It does require criminal, or law enforcement notification. If it's not an emergent situation, in other words, insurance of health and safety, pretty much they may no really ongoing risk other than you're trying to make law enforcement notification. You can go through my unit. We do have a deputy that works in the unit, basically contracted through the board and the Stark County Sheriff's Office. And you can either leave a voice message on his work number, or you can email him and have a service notification when it's required under the rule. Now, I will say if it's an emergent situation, don't just leave a message on his phone. It's something that probably you need to go whatever jurisdiction it's in and then let down the police get the ball rolling and make sure everybody's held and safe. A lot of the jurisdictions, most all of them really at this point in time around the county are aware of him being with us in his position here. And they may take a report and do whatever's necessary, sometimes make arrests or whatever. But then a lot of those get found back unless the investigation follow. MUIs that need to be reported within a medium to 4-hour time frame. Now these can be verbal reports. They don't have to be, medium to 4-hour reports in a paper form. But any kind of an accidental or suspicious death, exploitation, misappropriation, neglect, peer-to-peer is a little bit different. It's actually a category B kind of case, but some of them, if they involve a victim and, a perpetrator of the act, we actually do sometimes investigate those like it's a category A. And because they're potentially criminal, those do require immediate to 4-hour notification. Physical abuse, prohibited sexual relations, and verbal abuse of their category A kind of things that potentially criminal component to them. And then, actually, it's not an MUI, but inquiring from the media about an MUI. We do sometimes have stuff that turns up on local news, either the paper or sometimes up in the Cleveland media, Channel 19 or whatever. And if they do identify a person as somebody served in our system, we do need immediate 4-hour reporting. We need to kind of be able to have some information out ahead of, them making the call and trying to get information. If we don't know what's going on out there in the media, we need to know so that we can actually be, sort of proactive and gather the information. What constitutes a great incident report? Well, basically, it's kind of the who, what, where, when, how, and why, to the extent that you have that information. So who, individual staffs, who's involved in the incident. MUIs can be filed actually on groups. So let's say you have like a residential situation where 4 or 5 people served in one particular setting. Money turns up missing, beds turn up missing, whatever. It may affect multiple people within that group, it may affect everybody in the group. We can put those all under one MUI report. We're at that point really investigating misappropriation. So just need to know everybody that's involved. Sometimes multiple people in the house, but not everybody is involved. We're in particular focusing on who is involved in victimizing the incident. What we need to the extent we can, know what led up to the incident before, what happened during and after. Date and time of the incident, if you know it. There are situations that we ultimately really never have a specific time of day. In that case, it helps us to know when at least you can keep them. Location of the incident. A lot of stuff happens in residences or, programs, day treatment programs, or whatever, persons being served. But things happen in the community. Some of the more egregious kind of things that I see come through are people that are really pretty autonomous out in the community, and then something bad happens maybe out in the community. And so we do need to know the location of the incident. If you have that information, please make sure that we are getting communicated that. What are causes and contributing factors? What led up to it? Are there any seeds? Are there any things that we need to know that we need to maybe take a deeper dive into the gathering of information? Injuries, if there are injuries, certain categories, it's not much like related to our injuries, obviously, something like theft, maybe not. But if there are any injuries, we need to know where on the person's body they are, type of injuries. I mean, is it a burn versus a cut versus, bruising, whatever. The incident, the injuries involved in the incident are. We need to know who's completing the report, who witnessed it, or has personal knowledge of it. We need to have, when we take that report, we should know pretty much what facts you have available to you. And we really do need immediate action. We need to know that that situation is at least been stabilized to the point where there's not an ongoing risk. We don't want somebody to be hurt after that. So really, that's it. Again, feel free, if you have something that needs to be reported, you can certainly call me, Bill, any manager of, the management team. That's what I got. Do you all have any questions? Anything you want to know in particular? That's what I got.
Thank you, Tom. All right, committee and department reports are in our board packets. Are there any additions or deletions need to be made at this time? If not, we do not have any old business. However, we do have some new business this evening with Connie Fulton presenting the 2023 table of organization.
Yeah, give me a second.
So while he's pulling that up, I'll just mention that the 2022 table of organization is in your board packet, pages 52 through 72. This does identify each of our authorized positions here at the board, and it also lists any vacancies that we have. HR pretty much oversees the table of organization, and we do assign a position number to each of our positions. And the table of organization per policy is reviewed by the superintendent with recommendations made to the board each year. So last year, we did recommend to the board that the position control numbers for some of our specialized SSA positions be made more succinct. So you will see those changes in this year's table. As far as further recommendations go for the table of organization, we don't have any for 2023. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you, Connie. At this time, we'll have a review of policy slated for first reading.
We have policy 2.15, targeted case management documentation. This policy is reviewed with no changes recommended. Policy 2.22, HIPAA, also reviewed with no changes recommended. Policy 3.10, employee building access, reviewed with no changes recommended. And policy 5.01, early intervention program and services, also reviewed with no changes recommended.
Okay, thank you, Connie. So now we'll move on to resolutions, in which we have 11 tonight. Start with first area. We'll take resolutions 1253, 22, and 1254, 22 together. These resolutions are to approve for expenditures for months of October and November. I need a motion.
Some motions.
To a second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Good evening, everyone. So for the month of October, we had 16.6 million in local revenues. We had our second half real estate tax that we received during the month, 262,000 in state revenue and 242,000 in federal, giving us 17.16 million for the month of October in revenue. We had two payrolls during the month of 1.3 million, benefits paid of 1.19, and total other expenses of 6.7. We had a waiver match payment in there as well. Total expenses of 9.1 million and our revenue exceeded expenses by a little over 8 million. We began cash at the beginning of the year, 16.7 million. We had 369,000 in 2021 purchase orders closed, so added back to that balance. 2022 POs at the end of October were just under 3 million, and our year-to-date positive financial position of 3.8 million gives us $62 million in cash at the end of October, minus the 10 million in reserve gives us 50 million in cash. Our budget versus actual for October, 49.5 million year-to-date in revenue, which is over 100% of 100.6% of what we expected to receive this year, and 45.6 million in expenses, which is 81.5% of what we expect to spend. Our total budget remaining at the end of October is 7.3 million, mostly made up of unencumbered labor match and unencumbered personnel expenses. All right, so for the month of November, we had 96,000 in local revenue, state revenue of 320,000, and federal revenue of 950,000, giving us total revenue for November of 1.36 million. Again, we also had 2 payrolls during the month of November, totaling 1.3 million, benefits paid of 670,000, and total other expenses of 733,000, giving us total expenses for the month of 2.7 million. Our expenditures exceeded revenues by 1.3 million. Again, looking down below with our beginning year cash balance of 60.7 million. Again, that 369,000 added back of 2021 POs and 1.6 million open in 2022 POs at the end of November. Gives us ending cash of 62.02 million minus our 10 million in reserves. Gives us final unencumbered cash of 52.02 million at the end of November. Looking at the year-to-date totals, budget versus actual, we had 50.8 million in revenue, which is 103% of what we expected to receive. 48.3 million is 86.36% of what we expected to spend. Our target as of the end of November is just a little over 83%. Our remaining budget over on the far right at the end of November is 6.02 million, mostly made up, again, unencumbered labor match and personnel. Our prior year encumbrance report, we had 766,000 in 2021 purchase orders carrying over, 397,000 paid during the year, 369,000 closed, and we had 0 remaining at the end of November. Go back to my resolution. Hold on. Okay. All right, so we've got resolution 125322. You can see the breakdown of payroll 1.3, non-payroll of 7.8, and resolution 125422 with the payroll of 1.28 and the non-payroll expenses of 1.4. If there are no questions, requesting approval of these resolutions.
There's no questions, all in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. No abstentions. Financials for October, November are approved. Moving to resolution 125522, approve the request to post a DUS bid. I need a motion. One second.
Harley is her second.
Thank you. Discussion from the.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, resolution 125522 is request to bid for a purchase of a 2024 model year yellow bus. Estimate cost of the vehicle with trade is about 130,000. The board currently maintains 31 yellow buses for the preschool and school age programs. The board intends to continue their efforts over the past years to upgrade our fleet by retiring older, higher mileage and higher maintenance buses. We like to accept bids for 1 new bus and retire 4 trains of our current fleet. Any questions?
No questions?
Different question. Good.
All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. No abstentions. The resolution is approved. Resolution 125622 approved the 2023 final budget. I need a motion. A second.
Anderson, second.
Thank you. Discussion from you.
Hello again. I have a short little presentation for our 2023 budget. There's not a lot of changes from 2022, especially when we're talking about revenue. So for 2023, our state and federal dollars are expected to remain flat. No change there. No increase, no decrease, about the same. Our local revenue we've seen are that small increase in the real estate collection. We'll continue to probably see that as we had in the past. And then our billing and excess costs, which goes up a little bit every year, but everything else is pretty much flat. Our expenses for 2023, we do have a 2% staff increase, and then we did have a premium increase for our health insurance of 7%, and that was built into the budget. And then again, our new waivers every year to about $1 million. And then we have built in, and this is for future, I'm sorry, not for 2023, but when we look at the forecast, a $2.5 million, I'm sorry, this is 2023, I'm getting ahead of myself. The DSP retention payment, we paid half of it in 2022, and it's for providers to help them retain their employees for the DSP workforce crisis. So $2.5 million in 2023 and each year thereafter as well. So when we're talking about long-term forecast, again, our expected increase that we'll see in the real estate based on our historical data is built into that forecast. We expect to see insurance increases, our employee rate increases, and of course, new waivers. We're going to eventually use the enhanced FMAP, whereas right now we've been paying for the past couple of years a lower portion of our Medicaid match. That did get extended through, as of what I know right now, for June. So we'll find out if the public health emergency gets extended, if that will be extended as well. And then we've also budgeted an additional 3.5% for a Medicaid rate increase that it will happen in 2024. So this last slide here just shows our cash balance forecast, and you can just see the dip with our revenue remaining the same. Our revenue remaining the same here, and our expenses continuing to go up each year. We're about a $10 million deficit each year in spending, which is represented here in our cash balance through 2026. So any questions on that presentation before we go over the detailed budget? Okay. So for 2023, we have total local revenues estimated at $36.2 million. Total state revenues estimated at $6.7 million, and total federal at $6.6, for total revenue of $49.6. Total expenses estimated at $59.9 million. You can see the breakdown, personnel and benefits, 17 and 8 million, and then other allocations, which include waiver match, and that's about 26 million of that $28.6 million in that there as well. So it's estimated, and that $10 million deficit, $10.2 million overspent in 2023. It's estimated that we'll end with cash at about $60.8 million this year. So we'll end with unencumbered balance at next year of $50.5 million. And that $10 million reserve is included in that. I do not deduct that from the budget. So minus the reserve, it would actually be $40.5 million. So if there are no questions, wait, I'm sorry, I'm saying two other funds. So we have our capital fund. There's no activity there for 2023, as well as our coding gifts and donations. We have cash balances there of $14,384 and $125,450. There are no questions requesting approval of resolution 125622.
Wait, I had a question. Just is this the levy taxes?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, that is, yeah.
Any other questions? Discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. No abstentions. Resolution is approved. Moving to resolution 125722, approve the 2023 Northeast Ohio Level budget. Need a motion?
Lane moves.
In a second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion from the
Thank you. So this resolution is to approve our NEON budget. So all the expenditures and the revenue received and passed through NEON. So each year we always send over the 212 per family support, as well as the $400,000 transfer to keep that fund replenished. You'll see that revenue there. And then we have some capital housing pass-throughs that's basically an in and out, so it's a wash. So we're expecting revenues of $887,000 to NEON, and expenses, which are made up of the FSS you see there. We have room and board, but a lot of the larger items such as locally funded HBC, home modifications, payee shifts, that make up the $923,000 in expenses. So we're estimating $36,000 expenses over revenues, and then also estimating cash at the end of next year at Neon to be about $710,000. So if there's no questions, requesting approval of resolution 125722.
Any other questions? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. No abstentions. Resolution is approved. Now we move to resolution 125822, approving the transfer of funds to, need a motion?
Biggie moves.
A second?
Carmelita, second.
Thank you. Discussion for me.
Thank you again. So this resolution, like I just stated, this is to transfer the $400,000 over to Neon to keep those funds replenished. There's 14 county boards who are members of Neon. And right now, the services we get from Neon are locally funded for supported living, invoice payment for those individuals we serve, as well as the family support services. They manage that program and cut the checks and manage that with, make sure that people can use their coupons. Those are the two big things. If there's no questions, requesting approval of resolution 125822.
Okay. No questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. No abstentions. Resolution is approved. Okay, we have a significant resolution here. 125922 includes the declaration of necessity to levy a regular 3.3 mils tax levy. I need a motion.
Anderson motion.
In a second.
Calvin Lang, second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Resolution 125922 is entitled a resolution of necessity, and by administrative code and the Ohio Revised Code, this is needed for the county commissioners to be able to proceed with us going on in the ballot for May 2nd, 2023. It is a renewal levy, and there will be no new taxes. And that is what this resolution speaks to. As I indicated during the October meeting, the purpose of the levy is changing. And it's been updated to the new Ohio Revised Code language, which is authorizing the county boards of developmental disabilities for the acquisition, construction, renovation, financing, maintenance, and operation of developmental disability facilities or for both such purposes for 5 years beginning in the tax collection year of 2023. So we will begin collecting in 2024. Just as a point of information, 2/3 of our budget is within this levy.
No question. So after this resolution, the next phase would go to the commissioners for their approval, or?
That is correct. They will have a separate resolution, and they will authorize us to go on the ballot, and they'll approve of what is called approving all things necessary for us to go on the ballot on May 2nd. And we expect that resolution to be approved probably the first board meeting in 2023 that they have.
Any other questions? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. No abstentions. The resolution is approved. Move to resolution 126022, approves the payment of the non-public share of services required for 2023 Medicaid expenditures. I need a motion.
Biggie moves.
Second.
Calvin Lang, second.
Any discussion from you?
Hello, thank you. So resolution 126022 is authorize our appropriation of $23.35 million to pay the non-federal share. That's, I'm sorry, that's a mistake. It's $26.38 million. In the top, it's incorrect. I apologize for that. So in our 2023 budget, our appropriation is $26.38 million to pay the labor match obligation. And this amount includes the administrative fees that we pay on the number of those that we support, And it also includes that direct support professional retention incentive of $2.5 million that we saw on the budget presentation. These amounts are, represent our ongoing financial commitment to the Board of Developmental Disabilities. And it's adequate to ensure that the services for the Medicaid expenditures will conform to all applicable state and laws. And those provides codes are listed out there at the top there. If there are no questions, requesting approval of resolution 126022.
Any other questions? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. No abstentions, resolution is approved. Resolution 126122 approves the 2023 service contracts. Any motion?
Anderson motion.
Thank you. Second?
No second.
Thank you. Discussion for you.
Thank you. So this contract is basically all of the contracts that we know are going to be over $25,000 during 2023. And they're listed out, service and support, IT. I know we kind of lumped everything under all other. I'm not going to go over all of them, but they include our Verizon contract, our technology for our printers and maintenance, our Chronos, Britco, capital leases, things such as that. If you have any specific questions about any of the contracts, I'd be happy to answer those questions. But if there are no further questions, I'll request approval of resolution 126122.
We have a question.
Sure.
Does the other category include the agreement with Plain Local Schools to write the Alvin test?
We approved that, believe in August.
Is that separate from this?
That is separate, yes.
Thank you.
There are some that sporadically throughout the year we do separate.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions on the services contracts? All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Opposed, say nay. No abstentions. Resolution is approved. Move to resolution 126222 approves the request to amend table of organization. Any motion? No second?
No second.
Thank you. Discussion and time.
This is resolution requests that we are able to create 4 SSA positions to be hired in 2023. The SSA position really serves as the point of contact to assist our individuals and coordinates all services that they need. The addition of 4 SSA positions is needed as we increase home and community-based service waivers. One of the new SSA positions will be designated to oversee all guardianship and also serve as a court liaison. The expense associated with the addition of the 4 SSA positions is included in the 2023 budget. And once the positions are approved, they will be assigned a position control number and added to our table of organization. Any questions?
No further questions. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. No abstentions. The resolution is approved. Move to one more resolution before second reading. It's resolution 126322 approves the 2023 policy manual. Need a motion? No second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion with time.
So since December of 2013, the board's policy manual has been placed on the agency's intranet site. And it certainly is available to employees to read any of the policies that they might be interested in. There are 6 chapters to the board policy manual, and those chapters are governance, agency administration, safety and facilities, human resources, program services, and information technology. So attached to this resolution, you have an index of all the approved policies that are in each of those chapters that make up the board policy manual. Any questions?
No further questions. All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Opposed, say nay. No abstentions. Resolution is approved. Moving to second reading of the board policies that were presented at the October board meeting. Will be presented by Karen.
Policy 2.08 confidentiality. Policy 2.12 incidences adversely affecting health and safety. Policy 3.04 hazardous communication program. And policy 4.18 resolving discrimination complaints. For each reviewed with no changes recommended. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That brings us to our last resolution, 1264-22, providing approval for board policies presented for second reading. I need a motion.
Cabo moves.
Wait a second.
Smith second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? With none, all in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Or say nay. No abstentions. Board policies are approved. We will now have our scheduled executive session to discuss performance evaluation of the superintendent. I need a motion to go into executive session.
Ian, before we do that,
Yes.
I just want to compliment Bill and the staff of Star TV. When you look at the annual report, Bill has presented the number of individuals that have been hired, and everybody is smuggling, as well as the numbers of families served and individuals from record breaking. So I just want to recognize the staff.
Yeah, thank you. Good, man. Thank you. So, need a motion to go into executive session. One second.
Anderson, second.
Thank you. We will be taking no action after the executive session. If anyone chooses not to stay, please have a safe, healthy holiday season. We will now need a roll call vote to go into executive session. Jim Anderson? Yes. Dr. Bell, Marie Healy?
Yes.
Jennifer Long?
Yes.
Herman Smith?
Yes.
Cindy Sutter?
Yes.
Dan Sutter, yes. We are in executive session at 7:02.
Yeah,
Do I need a mic or?
you can use one, yeah.
Okay, now we're at an executive session at 7:37. And now need a motion to adjourn.
Pinky moves. Oh, Sutter seconds.
Yeah. Extension here. Hey, that's something.